Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our today's session. We are back with another session. This is session number 11, which will be talking about AWS Control Tower, billing and cost control, followed by Amazon Quicksight, right? Thank you for joining this session. Really apologize for making you wait for a few minutes. There was some technical glitch at our end, but no worries. We'll make this session more interesting, and we'll try to cover up at given time. With that, let me quickly start with today's session. So today's session, as I mentioned, is session number 11. We are almost on the verge of wrapping up our bootcamp. So I will do request everyone to please register with us in the description, which is given in the chat. If you haven't done it, so we can share all the materials as well as all the study group details and all. If you have already registered, as well as all the folks do actively participate in the chat group, as well as contribute, finish your assignments and all the people who are actively been participating in all of the sessions, as well as completing all their assignments and all, we will pick those lucky winners and will reward them with AWS certification vouchers as well as an credit in the last session of this particular bootcamp. So if you haven't registered it yet, please do it today itself. With that, let me quickly jump to our today's session. So you all know my name is Sanchit. I work as a lead architect at Quantify. Along with that, I'm an AWS APN ambassador and love to contribute to different communities, different user groups. I talk about in different community days. That's exactly what I do outside working as an architect at Quantify. That's about myself. Let's quickly jump on today's first topic, which will be AWS Control Tower. So before we jump to and understand what exactly is the Control Tower all about, let me quickly introduce a couple of things to you, right? And before that, let me quickly share my screen. So yes, today's session will be AWS Control Tower. And with that first session, before we jump on to actual today's agenda about Control Tower and all, let me quickly walk through you a couple of concepts which will help you to understand in detail. The first one is AWS Organization, right? So basically, when it comes to AWS Organization, is more like how you structured your different accounts, right? In simple layman language, if you talk about what exactly organization will be, organization is more service which help you to organize your different AWS accounts, right? Generally, many companies, when they have a sufficient amount of workloads on AWS, they start segregating the different accounts based on different teams, based on different environments, or based on business application, right? Now it becomes very difficult how you can have that clear segregation, right? That the relationship in terms of who should be doing what in terms of account wise also, right? Which is the billing account, which is log monitoring. All those things are very important because that exactly will help you to delegate the right responsibility and permission boundaries, right? For example, the logs which you capture from all of your accounts, you need those logs for auditing, you need it for security purpose. Now you cannot have those logs residing in all of this, let's say, different child accounts, right? You will consolidate, segregate, and put it into one account, and that account you will restrict the AWS permissions to ensure very limited people do have the permission. And if you want to open any auditor and all, you will open to the log account so that he can view and understand and explore what kind of activity you do and what are your practices, rather than opening it to all the accounts. Similarly, it goes to if we look from another example, can be of billing. Now, technically, billing is something handled in any organization is handled by the financial team. Now, financial team is like, really, they don't care about technical wise how different accounts you have. They are more worried about what is the dollar value or what is the total consolidated amount they need to pay. So rather than going in each and every account, let's say you have 10 accounts going and logging and paying the bill, you can simplify that. You can give it that one consolidated billing account where they can log, they can understand what is a cost team wise they have, and they can pay the bill and understand it, right? So it can help to simplify not only from an operational perspective, even from security, right? As I talk about logging, as well as if you want to apply certain policies, right? Certain policies which should cut across all the accounts. Like for a very simple example, no one should be allowed to delete CloudWatch logs. Like this is the best practice. if you want to implement in all the accounts from one central place, that kind of thing also you can do once you have this organization structured enabled. As well as if you want to have more like a very simplified way of logging into all the child accounts, you can use AWS single sign-on blended with organization. So this way you don't have to remember the credentials of each and every account. From the root account itself you log in, and then from there you can assume or you can change the role for different accounts, right? So there are many benefits of using organization in terms of simplifying the management and operational, as well as providing more governance structure, and at the last providing more security and less privilege across different environments, right? So there are different ways. Again, when it comes to organization, is more like a service via which you can define your organization unit. Within that unit, which like in this particular OU level. Now, how exactly you define the OU level is completely depends on how what are the different business application it is. Like if I talk about my perspective, generally I try to first segregate across business application wise, like application 1, application 2, application 3, and then within application I have like this nested OU becomes my application level, and then within nested OU I have different landscapes like dev environment, UAT, prod, testing, those kinds of different environments. So like a more like a tree structure kind of stuff. Now each organization will have a different perspective, but this generally I do it, and then there becomes a very separate OU which is more from a governance perspective. So things like billing, things like all of the stuff that goes into as a central shared kind of thing. So that's how generally each one organize it. But do remember a couple of pointers. One, organization service is very important when you start increasing your landscape across multiple accounts. It's very helpful to spin up organization, I mean to leverage organization service and spin up OU and segregate your service, segregate your accounts, segregate the roles and responsibility, and as well as track your entire permissions and as well as the entire governance layer. So that's about AWS organization, what we have. And again, as I mentioned, you can also apply policies, which we'll understand in detail. So there is some that is called a service control policy, right? Service control policy is more technically, you cannot think like an IM, but it's again a kind of a governance policy which you can apply. And this policy will we apply across a given OU, right? Let's say if you apply one policy on the root OU, that, as I mentioned in the last slide, no one should be allowed to delete CloudWatch logs, right? Because you want to track and audit everything. Now, this, when you apply as a service control policy, this service control policy will cut across all the accounts what you have, right? All the accounts except the master account, the one master account where you will have your OU. Outside to that, it will cut across all the different accounts. This way, instead of going in each and every account and applying that policy, which you may miss or you may not apply the right, you can apply from one central level, and that will be applied across all of this accounts what you have. So that's the beauty of service control policies. By default, when you enable an organization unit, there is one service control policy which we generally refer as SCP. That SCP comes with explicit allow. Again, we should ensure that it does not allow anything by default, but explicit allow that comes up. You can define different kinds of stuff. Like for example, I've seen a couple of experiences where people restrict access to a couple of services. Like if they haven't done proper sanitization of that services in their environment, they restrict it via SCP across all the across environments. Like one recent example, if I talk about, I came across one scenario where an SCP was applied to a specific role to not to enable the private link for a load balancer. So across all the environments, not just dev, UAT, but even for production. So that becomes very easy when it comes to the governance or the control part of it, right? You don't have to go in each and every account and just tight the screw and all. You can just implement from one account and you can take care. Like if you see this particular example, right? Now, not only you have applied the full control from the OU, but within the specific accounts, you're applying it. That also is possible. Generally, there are certain best practices every organization enable. Things like tagging, that people should not allow to spin up new resources. So that kind of tagging thing you can enable from SCP. If you want to have very specific restriction account wise or OU wise, that also you can do it. So not only your child OU, the nested OU, right? If I go back here in this slide, so once you apply this policy, by default, the nested OU will inherit this policy. As well as if you apply any new SCP here, so member account technically will inherit all of this SCP. The SCP which is apply on this OU, the SCP which is apply on the nested OU, all those policy will be applied to the member account. So you can think of couple of your organization best practices like tagging, monitoring. You can apply as a generic on the root OU. Any specific environment wise, if you want to enable it, like for an example, the billing, the finance team should not be able to log in into another account. Just one example. So there kind of permission you can enable on that particular billing OU to ensure that the people who are there or assuming the billing role are not allowed to read or go through some other accounts like log monitoring or any other workload or production thing. So that's kinds of stuff also you can do. So this is very important service and useful for the folks who have very larger workload. Like if you have like one or two accounts, you may not understand the benefit of organization unit. But again, SCPs is very important if you have like more than one account, because that will help you to establish your centralized governance framework across all the accounts, right? And if you check this particular screenshot, right here, there are by default AWS themselves come up with couple of stuff, right? You can have AWS manage policy, as well as you can customer also can define their own policy. So if you once you spin up your AWS organization, you can go under policies, and where with the policies you can define your own custom policies also. As I mentioned, like maybe tagging can be one of thing. So those kinds of custom policies also you can enable it, which is what we refer as a guardrail, more security or preventive measures, like. So that's how organization unit and service control policies. But now let's understand why or where exactly we need it, right? Generally, I see this questions is very common. I've seen across LinkedIn or different other Slack channels in community. Why do we need multi-account? Most of the people come up, hey, US itself has like multiple regions. There are like 4 regions what we have. Then why do you asking me to go for multi-account? I can spin up my workloads across multi-region rather than multi-account. This is a very common concept or very common thought process everyone do have in their mindset, right? What is exactly the USP of going multi-account? Because end of the day, multi-account increase multiple things. As you mentioned, I need to enable organization unit. I need to take care of SCPs. If it is one account, I can easily take care of IAM. What is exactly the motivation of going there, right? So there are 4 things which is helps you when it goes to multi-account. First, network segmentation. Second, modularity or clearly defining the boundaries of each applications. Scalability and compliance. Now let's understand all of these 4 points in very detail. First, when you talk about, let's say, having one account or one simple account, even though you have one account and you're using cross account cross region kind of stuff, the problem is your IAM policy is still global. Your IAM policy works on not a regional service, it's a global services. That's one. Second thing, if you want to have any sorts of clearly IP addresses or clear kinds of segregation in your workload and define that restriction, you have to over engineer a couple of things or have to ensure that it properly clearly defines the boundaries of it. So that becomes very difficult when you have networking stuff, right? Very simple example if I talk about is uh, I have seen, I mean, in my early days, I've seen people used to hard code the access key secret key. I mean, now people have become very mature and they started using IAM rules, but they used to use access key, secret key hard coded. Now, the clear difference where I used to mostly promote multi account, because when you hard code access key secret key in any account, in any region, since it is global, it will work fine. It will work from, let's say, North Virginia to Ohio to Oregon. But as soon as if I jump to another account, that access key will be caught on the ground itself because it won't work. So that help you to clearly segment your entire application boundaries as well as the network boundaries. Network boundaries in terms of VPC, network boundaries in terms of transit gateway or any sorts of direct connect or VPN connectivity. So it help you to clearly defines your CIDR block and the network layer. Like generally people in the dev will be much a bit flexible compared to if you talk about testing, UAT and production, right? As you go higher in the different landscape. So that segmentation or segregation helps you with when you go multi-account. The second is modularity. Modularity in terms of, now for an example, if you want that, okay, you're launching an application and that application should clearly help you, that okay, each application should clearly help you what kind of workload you're doing, right? So when it comes to your billing standpoint, from a billing perspective, if you want very clear segregation that this particular module is very independent and there is no dependency, and I want to clearly track how it is performing, what is the consumption of the services on the different API level or on the cost level. So that modularity help you in a way. The second thing also you can think of is, generally, let's say if something goes wrong with a particular service, now by default also there are APIs which has an account, which is a limit on the account level. Like you cannot go above certain limits on the account level, they are not regional level. Now since, let's say if you're testing something in a UAT environment, which generally people do load testing and all, you will need a higher API calls rather than going exactly in the dev or in production, right? Production you might need higher than that in few scenarios, but if you're doing a load testing as well as if your production workload spike, there will be a conflict. Even though you're using a different region, there will be a conflict, because end of the day those APIs are on the account level, they are not on the region level, right? So that kinds of things becomes very difficult to differentiate the modularity or the segmentation, like how we can modularize your application and a standalone kind of thing, rather than having like when you package everything in a cross account. That's one. Second things which comes follow up is the scalability also. As I mentioned, like if once you don't give your application the modularity kind of thing, even from a scalability perspective, it becomes a bottleneck. Like certain times, if let's say if you have kind of IP addresses or any kind of stuff which you are not clearly defining it or you're not strategizing it, it might become a blocker when you are doing certain activities in your lower environment versus the things which is happening in production. And at the last, the compliance. As I mentioned very clearly, the IAM is a global thing. The log monitoring you want to clearly segregate. Okay, it may be on a regional thing what you can do, but you want to clearly define the permission, who should have what kind of access and all. As well as from an audit perspective, how we can clearly define the boundaries when or what kind of user should have which permission, right? Now, if you have one account, it will really be difficult for you to say that, okay, hey, I am a database user, then I should only have the permission to database, not to, let's say, the EC2 instance, or not to, let's say, my web application. That kind of clear defining responsibility becomes very difficult when you use one single account. And that are the four things which really helps at my end to promote multiple accounts, because that way it not only helps you to clearly define the boundaries, right? Now, let's say it is not necessary that the development team which is working in dev environment and production should have access to the production environment. So those kinds of segregation you can do from an auditing purpose. Let's say if you want to elevate the access to production for some bug fixing and all, that is very defined narrow window, and you can easily track who approved it, what kind of permission. As well as from a scalability, if let's say one of your module is not working as expected, the effect is not on another module, because it's very modularized way approach of defining and deploying that application. So those are the advantages where it helps me when it goes to multi-account. But now someone can really ask me that, okay, hey, I completely understand where are you coming from. We understand why you need multi-account, but there is one thing which comes up is multi-account also brings, when it comes to deploying of multiple accounts and managing it, it is really tough. It's really tough. It's not like a one day job. You really need to get down into all accounts. We understand there is organization unit, there is SCP, but what about implementing, let's say, CloudTrail in all the accounts? What about, as you mentioned, enabling the CloudWatch in all the accounts? How you can sync all the logs from one account to another? How you can define the IAM permissions in all the accounts? So those are the all valid question, and that's what those valid questions are answered by AWS in form of control tower. So technically most of the organization do understand the impact of going multiple account, but they were a bit reluctant to go multiple account in terms of, from a management perspective, the kind of overhead they had at their end. With understanding that need and the ask, AWS launched control tower. You can also many people also refer this as a landing zone. In short, this control tower is more like a package deployment which help you to deploy different accounts in a very proper and a secured with best practices out of the box. What I mean is, there is when you launch a control tower, right? Generally, when it comes to multi-account, the first thing, that couple of things that people always think is how I can launch different accounts in a repeatable fashion. Like, okay, once I define the best practices, that should go as a repeatable fashion across all the accounts. Two, the kind of best practice or the governance which I apply on the master account, that should be by default inherited, which we understood from SCPs and organizations in the first two slides. Three, when it comes to auditing, which is a very integral part of all the industries, how I can get one centralized place where all the logs from all the accounts get stored or synced, so I don't have to worry more about when it comes to auditing and compliance, right? Those are a couple of questions everyone, any architect thinks when it started working on spreading out the different accounts. There exactly, Control Tower gives you different features and functionalities that, okay, what you can not only enable, I mean, you have to enable your Control Tower in the master account. And in a very layman language, you can define all the guardrails. So what we understood different SCPs at the second slide, right? Those you can enable at the guardrail. You can also enable the governance layer, the single sign-on. And with that kind of a control tower, you can have vending machine, account vending machine, which will help you to repeat the kind of instruction which you have fed in control tower in all the different accounts. So by default, Amazon provides the package solution across control tower, which help you to define your entire accounts in broadly three categories. So one is your entire audit account, where you can have the logs and all. Then your log archiving account, like all the compliances and all your log archiving account. Those two becomes key accounts along with your entire master account. And then there are workload accounts. So workload accounts, you can spin up how much you want, however you want, based, as I mentioned, based on different business application wise or different landscape wise of dev, UAT, and prod. You can have multiple replicas or multiple instance of workload account. This structure is very simplified by AWS and given as a form of a package, which will help you to ensure that today, let's say you have enabled guard duty, security hub, and you have told control tower that by default, any new account that gets spin up, you should enable this thing, or you should also enable cloud config and cloud trail for log archiving purpose. Now, this instruction you have already given to control tower while defining. Now, you have launched one account today. Tomorrow, you want to launch 10 other accounts. Previously, before control tower, you can have CloudFormation or some custom Python scripts or some packages via which you can do that same functionality. But you have to go log in each of the accounts. You have to define IAM role. You have to define all those kinds of best practices and all. With help of control tower getting into it, you have to apply all the best practices at one place. Most of them AWS already provide out of the box. Still, if you want to customize, you can do that. As well as it becomes a repeatable fashion. The biggest advantage is the repeatable fashion. That today you can get workload account as one. Tomorrow, if you want to launch 10, 100, you can easily do it with the help of account vending machine, the account factory, what they have. With help of that, you can easily do it. As well as if you have an existing account, like most of the organization always start with small in a stale mode. Then they start growing big in AWS. So the biggest advantage of control tower is, let's say you already have spin up some POC accounts, you can also incorporate that account. So it's not only applicable for the existing accounts, it is also useful for getting the new existing accounts also in the control tower with help of all the best practices and all. So that's the advantage what you can get when it comes to the control tower. And couple of things which we provide, which you have already covered up. Governance, you can easily get the governance here, as well as you can define your custom thing, right? So this generally, like, you can define your backup policies, the tagging policies. If you want to have some sort of a billing alerts or cost control, right, that you want to get more visibility, that kind of standard packages or standard implementation you can do. So control tower is mostly, you can think of like an open source, which is available by AWS on under AWS Quick You can clone that repo and you can define your own implementation also as per your organization. Let's say if you have some custom tagging requirement, custom billing, custom IAM rules, that kind of thing you can do. You can inherit it or implement your own policies and guardrails on that baseline framework, which is provided by AWS. And this all can be easily been achieved with the foundational cloud formations and the package, as well as the cloud formation and the package which is given by the AWS in form of the control tower. The best thing about control tower, which I have personally deployed it for multiple of customers, is the entire it's I mean, when you talk about cloud formation, somewhat might think what's a difficult thing in it. Like when you have cloud formation, you can achieve anything. The best part is not the cloud formation. The best part is the way this entire package is maturely developed. They do have things like step functions, which this cloud formation have been tracked. They validate the outcome of cloud formation at each stage. So if something goes wrong, you don't get to know at the end of the entire process. You get to know there and there itself, so you can fix it and you can resume those things, right? And the entire, if I talk about my experience previously, to achieve the same use case, we used to take roughly like 1.5 2 weeks. If you have like 4 or 5 accounts, technically after, like, once you become an expert in this particular control tower after 1 or 2 deployment, ideally it takes us like 4 to 5 hours. And again, 4 to 5 hours not in an active mode. We just spin up, we provide the right configurations, we spin it up in 4 to 5 hours in a standalone mode, in a passive mode. The entire accounts get deployed. We just have to have all the right configurations and the run book ready at our end. And in 4 or 5 accounts, you can have X number of accounts ready with a control tower and with all the best practices. So that's the advantage what we can see when it comes to the control tower part of it. So that covers the first section, what I was talking about, right? And the last point, which was around why we need the control tower. So I think that is very clear from the last slide itself, that it's help you to define the multi-account with all the tedious process. It get rid of all the tedious process and have a better understanding of all the AWS services and the governance layer. The second is it's a quick solution that Amazon itself provide the baseline solution. You can for sure enrich that base solution, but almost 85% of work is already given by AWS itself. You just have to provide the right configuration, following the documentation, and spin up. So it simplifies even the deployment part of it with all the best practices. The last is the baseline, like all kinds of activities which is there. So as I mentioned, like in SCP also, AWS provides their baseline AWS managed policies, which also you can enable, that can help you to achieve almost like 60 to 70% of the best practices, the standard one. If you have more and above, you can define your own custom SCPs and baseline that can achieve, like as I mentioned in the previous architecture, like I need to clearly define the backup and tagging policies which are core to my organization. Let's say budgeting is core to my organization. I can enable those things over and above. But even if I don't do it, all the best practices, like almost 75% is already there, which can help me to achieve, which is very difficult when it comes to manually enabling that across all the accounts. So that's why most of any enterprise solution which you see is in live. I think any enterprise solution which has been discussed from almost like after like second half of 2020 is all based out of control tower. Previously, this used to called as landing zone. Now landing zone, AWS redefined and provide as a service, which is called as control tower. So most of, I think, any solution, any enterprise solution, what I've seen in at least in second half of 2021, or even this so far in 2022, are all backed by control tower when it comes to the foundational deployment, because of the kinds of best practices, the kind of simplicity it provides, and the code itself is very open source. You can incubate your own best practices. So those were the advantages of control tower. So I'll quickly recap what we have understood so far. So we understood AWS organizations. AWS organizations help you to organize, structure your accounts based on different requirements, or the requirements of the business application or the people we interact, that help you to help clearly define the structure of it, as well as you can define the security policies on that structure, as well as the policies which you apply on the OU level get inherits as you move down the ladder to your child account. So child account by default will inherit all the things which is given to the parent OU or to the root OU. So that's another advantage of it. Then we understood what is exactly are these policies which I'm talking about, and why and how they differ against IAM. So these policies cut across all the accounts where you define, if you define a policy on a root OU, it will apply to all the accounts except master and across all the roles. So that's an advantage, that from one place you can get everything what you're looking for, as well as it's the same seamline way. So if you even want to modify it and let's say be more flexible in future from one place itself, you can achieve that rather than going in 10-15 accounts and doing that out. Just give me 1 minute. So that becomes an advantage when it comes to SCB part of it, and it is very clean and handled by, as it is applying the master account. It's not accessible by everyone. It can be taken care by easily by the root account itself or the people who have the access to the master account. Then we understand why exactly you need multi-account, or what's a motivation why people should use multi-account, where we talk about how multi-account can help you to clearly segregate in terms of your governance, security, networking level. It also helps you to achieve modularity. So if something goes wrong in a specific module of your application, it's not a cascading effect which you can get on other part if you deploy it across different accounts. And so this way it can allow you to also run the application in a minimal mode if something goes wrong out of it, as well as you can get the compliances, scalability and security also, because you define the IAM roles being a global service. It's not a regional service. So if you have a different accounts, you can clearly define the roles and responsibility across different environments what you have, which simplifies the security posture you want to achieve, as well as from an auditing or a compliance perspective, you can clearly define the responsibilities and have a list privilege kind of model achieved. And then we understood that how exactly you can even simplify. We already understand that what the advantage of multi-account, but if you want to deploy multi-account with all the best practices in a very seamless and simplified approach, then AWS has launched something called as Control Tower service, which is available in your console itself. How you can leverage Control Tower and define a multi-account architecture or multi-account setup in a very secured way within repeatable fashion. So you don't have to go keep working on every account which you spin up and ensure that it is best practice. But with the help of Control Tower, you can define your framework in one go and make it more repeatable for any new workload account which you spin up today or in future, as well as you can also import any existing accounts. So not only just you can enable for the new accounts, you can enable or import any existing account and apply that best practices. So that's what the Control Tower. And then we understood the three boxes where it helps that if you, it not only help you to achieve the multi-account structure, the solution is open source, so you can easily implement it following the documentation, as well as you can apply your own setup. And at the last, it's very convenient, and as well as you get the best practices which Amazon recommends in form of well architect and those kinds of stuff in a very easy and a simplified way. So those about the first part of today's session, which was more around the Control Tower. Next, we will move on the second important topic, which is very core to everyone, is the billing and the cost management. Like any organization where you start with, one of the things that always that comes up is how I optimize my cost, how I can save more dollar from my billing. So again, this is very subjective. When I say about the billing part of it, each organization in terms of how you can optimize the billing, how we can track around those billing, what are the key areas, that is more subjective based on the workload and how I can leveraging it. I will talk about couple of best practices or couple of proactive approach, right? So most of the people, they make mistakes when it comes to billing and cost tracking is more of a reactive approach. Reactive approach is, okay, I got charged, let's say $30,000 in this month, which is almost 30 times more than my last month. So I'll be very reactive. Okay, that will help you to save the cost for sure, but that will help you to save the cost for the next month, not for the current month. But if you follow proactive, and what are those approach of proactive, which we will understand in upcoming slides. But if you apply proactive, it might be possible that at the week 1 of the month itself, you will understand how are you consuming it, where exactly your consumption is going. Is it an optimal use case where you're consuming, maybe you need certain more number of servers to test, or you have launched another application, that's why your billing is going to increase. So it is more proactive that you not only inform your required stakeholder that the cost is going to shoot up this month, as well as you are very prepared for it. It's not a last minute surprise when you get the billing at the end of the month that, okay, you're charged $30,000. And you can easily track and optimize it in the upcoming week itself. So those are the proactive approach which everyone should enable it when it comes to the cost tracking perspective, right? And we'll highly focus and emphasize this upcoming section on how we can achieve that proactive measures, which are very simple to apply. You don't need to write like a very custom Python codes and all those kinds of stuff. With very simple configuration in the console itself and proactive visibility, how we can achieve that savings, right? So first comes is the pricing calculator. So most AWS provides something called as a pricing calculator. Previously, it also used to call it as a S3 based calculator. They host some static website on S3 and via which you can do it. Technically, any solution which I build, if I talk about myself, at the end, once I'm sure that this is the solution which I look, the second thing which I always do is I hit to this particular link, which is calculator.aws, and I try to find out what is the cost of my solution, how it is going to charge, right? Now, technically, I've given this number. This again varies from different stuff. I've just made some assumption. I've given a number, but at least this helped me to prepare what is my monthly cost is going to be, what will be my annual cost, right? And you can list down all the different services step by step around it. This includes all the services, like right from data transfer to S3, even to, let's say, if you talk about EC2 instance, like in case of EC2 instance, are you having a reserve instance? Are we having a saving plan for 1 year versus 3 year? Those all things, kinds of stuff you can do it. The advantage is two things. One, you are mentally prepared that this architecture, what I have designed, how much it's going to charge. That's one. So you get an early heads up in terms of the your run rate perspective. Two, if you see there is some sort of an optimization, right? As I mentioned that in case of EC2 instance, when you're designing it, you don't consider the saving plan, the reserve instance, those kinds of stuff. It's more evolving nature, right? But at the end, at the beginning itself, there is a thought which is in your brain that, okay, hey, no, I have to apply saving plans to bring down this cost. I have to reserve, let's say, the Redshift cluster because it's very expensive. I have to ensure that I apply work group in Athena to ensure no one queries more data, right? Otherwise, the cost is going to shoot exponentially. So those kinds of also best practices you get when you start calculating the cost, and as well as you clearly understand the service which you're applying, right? Have you applied in the right fashion? Like most of the people, when it comes of putting EC2 instance, they will always start with, let's say, some M5 4x or 5x large, or M5 8x large, sorry. But do you really need 8x large, or can you do it in 4x large with auto scaling enabled? Instead of vertical scaling, can I do horizontal scaling? Those kinds of things also you start realizing, or retrospective, once you start adding the cost, you start seeing all those details. So those are the couple of, I would say, advantages of using pricing calculator after any solution you design. And I've seen, this is my personal experience, it works pretty well because that really help you to understand in service, first of all, in detail, how the service is going to work in terms of the pricing, in terms of the actual ground, in terms of, like, let's say, the Kinesis Firehose or Kinesis data stream, or any serverless, I am using the Lambda in the right fashion or not, right memory, right runtime. And as well as it help you to mentally prepare that, okay, this solution which I've designed, how much is going to cost you. So those are the added advantage and a proactive way of achieving the cost estimation upfront without even you start deploying or working anything, right? Even writing one line of code, you can get some idea about what is your cost going to be. So that's about the pricing calculator. The second, for sure, everyone is doing that proactively, is about the billing dashboard. If anyone on this call who doesn't know about what exactly is the AWS billing dashboard is, I think you should quickly go through today itself in your AWS console and should look forward what is exact the billing dashboard is all about. But this billing dashboard helps you a lot to understand how exactly your service will look like, as well as it can also help you to go down and explore cost explorer, which will help you to break down this cost in different forms and different shape, which you will understand in upcoming. Like here you can simply understand that, okay, hey, I had a guard duty. I had S3, CloudTrail, CloudWatch, other services. And again, these are not regional wise. This is on an account level. It cost me this much. So, which is very okay. I mean, $0.22 is fine. But if you, let's say, if you see a higher component in S3, then you can understand and try to break down the cost itself, that where exactly I'm going wrong at early heads up, right? Comparing that, the best advantage of going in billing dashboard, even though it looks very simple, but if you try to understand this, the advantages, it will help you to compare. Like, okay, let's say for example, you're in November month, you spend X dollar, December you're going to spend Y dollar, and your forecasted for December, if it is not completed, is going to be this. So you understand, are you under your consumption or are you over about your consumption? Whatever it is, if it is under and over, you can help to understand where exactly you're going wrong or where are you going right around it. Along with that, you can also achieve a couple of other things like AWS budgets, cost explorer, and cost and usage report, which we'll see exactly in the few slides now. So these are the three things which you get as a part of your dashboard. Here you can see those different options, right? On the left hand side. Let's go down one level. So previously, before, I mean, this is more from a knowledge perspective. Before you had those budget alarms and the forecasting and all, there used to be a billing alarm used to be there, right? So billing alarm was to help you actual cost. Like it's more like how you can have the CloudWatch alarms. Similarly, you can set up a billing alarm in CloudWatch, which will help you to understand how exactly you're doing well based on the consumption. So one of, as I mentioned, more of proactive approach. Let's say my this month billing is $5,000 for an example. I don't want to go above $5,000. So what I can do is I can put an alarm at every stage, at 25%, at 50% of 5,000, at 75%, at 100% of 5,000. So I get that alarm at every stage to ensure that, okay, I'm being notified that you have already spent X dollar of your budget. You have spent Y dollars, Z dollar of the budget, and you have already spent your budget. So I can ensure how I'm doing it. But the problem, I mean, this works very well. I mean, I use this service also along with some other step. The most of the problem which I see is the services. This is also slightly reactive, not proactive. This don't give me the forecasted value. This give me the actual ground value. That okay, hey, just want to let you know you have already consumed $2,000. Okay, I've already consumed $2,000. Now I need to sit down. But if you would have told me in advance, just want to let you know you have already consumed $2,000. Your forecasting value is 4,000. I would be okay. That okay, my budget is 5,000, so it's below my budget only, so I'm fine. Since this service only gives the actual value, people don't have an option left. I mean, let's say it come up and say if you don't configure this service well, and it just come up and say you consume $5,000. So now what I can do? There's nothing option, right? So that's why I find this service a bit reactive. But again, this service is very important to get the ground reality, or how are you doing actually on the ground, because forecasting value is mostly considering couple of factors with respect to your last month billings, like how you have done in the last month billing in a given that week is more forecasted along with your current month. So it might be couple of times over forecasted, couple of times under forecasted also. That also I've seen. So that's why this service is helpful along with the forecasted value. There exactly comes as a budget. Now, if you see, the budget is exactly what I'm talking about. It's not only helping you to get the current thing that, okay, let me tell you, your current is this, it's the ground reality. You have put a budget of X dollar, but your forecasted was current versus budget is this, and your forecasted is this. So this helped me a clear definition to understand in very big detail that, okay, my billing type I have set, let's say $43 is my current, the budgeted is 45, and the forecasted is 56. So I get a very proactive heads up that, okay, just want to let you know, you're running like this mode. If you run in this, you're going to pass your forecasted by, let's say, 125%. Or if you see here at the bottom, even though you have consumed 136 out of $200, but at the end of the month, we see you will only consume 196, which is below your budgeted value. So you're fine, even though you have consumed more, but that is fine. So those kinds of more intelligent way that AWS budget service provides outside to giving you the ground reality of your consumptions. So budget not only just give you the forecasting in terms of your entire dollar value, it also help you to give the budget in terms of your reservation So in the EC2 segment, when Faisal covered it, you would have understood about the different way when you have EC2 instance, right? You can have saving plans, you can have the reservation, those kinds of also you can put into budget. Like if you have some saving plans, you can have some reserve installation, budgets, or the usage you want to monitor. Those advanced thing you can do outside the total billing of the account. That's for sure there. It also includes some more mature. Like if you see the snapshot, it's not only giving me the service wise kind of stuff along with the project total cost. It's not only giving me the service wise, it also gives me the API level. So let's say the S3 usage budget, which is more on the request API, it also gives me on the API cost wise. So that it helps this service to get you across all the different metrics that helps in a proactive way to optimize your billing and set the right budget as well as track it in an effective way. And for sure, you can then have in CloudWatch alarms, which we saw in the previous slide, to get the alarms on reality on your current budget, like how exactly you've consumed. So that's why budget service blends very well with the CloudWatch alarms and give you exactly the things which you are looking in a more intelligent way. The next is a cost explorer. So cost explorer, as we saw in the billing dashboard also, it gives you summarized snapshot. Summarized snapshot at, okay, how are you doing maybe on service wise also, or how are you doing across it? If you want to really break down your cost, the cost in terms of, let's say, some tags, you have your company have defined some tags on application wise, environment wise, or role wise, the cost allocation tag, as well as if you want to break down different service wise or region wise across given month, that kind of optimization you can do. So if I give a recent example for one of the thing which I was working on, the entire budget got shoot, like in 2 months it got shoot away, right? Even though we had everything, it got shoot again. We thought that it's an optimal use because the budget was within the range. I mean, the range what we had of monthly, it was within the range. But one fine day, I just thought of like, okay, let me just see why the cost has been increased by even by $2,000-3,000. So I went and I just did some calculation or create some kind of dashboard in the cloud, in the Cost Explorer, and I really identified it that the budget was not you. I mean, the cost got increased, which was fine, but it increased because of the consumption was more on the EC2 instance. And then I realized that how I can optimize it, how I can do it, because the rest of the things are still fine. Those are exact matching, like $2-3 here and there. But EC2 cost just shoot tremendously in last 2 months. And that is my billing got increased, let's say, by $2,000. So that helped me to go back, understand, and work that why my cost got increased. Is what is a legitimate use, or am I not using the right type of server, or we are not shutting down the EC2 instance when it is not required. That kind of more intelligent way you can achieve when you break down the cost, you explore the cost and do more analysis service wise or after different metrics that help you to get that thing. And the best part is in the cost tracking, you can view the entire track for your last over a year. So for last 13 months, like last 1 year to the current month. So total 13 months of comparison you can do that can clearly define the trends. How are you consuming your AWS? If your consumption is increasing, which service is increasing, what can be your strategy to fix it, optimize it, or is it what you're using is because of the nature of the business increase? So that kind of thing help you to justify it to your management or even to finance team why the cost has been increasing, where exactly it is increasing, and who exactly is consuming more cost from a tagging and cost allocation that perspective. That's exactly one of the major reason of most of the people enforce tagging as very important best practice and enable that tag as a cost control, cost resource tag, right? So if you enable that tag, based on the tag itself, whatever the tag you enable is, you can easily get that clear visibility how exactly you have been performing around it in terms of trends and charts. So that's about the cost control. And again, if you are pretty new to Cost Explorer, you haven't seen, maybe because you don't have the permission and all, just Cost Explorer also comes as a by default view. So technically this view which you see here is a by default view. You can enable it by a couple of filters, right? The filters can be of service wise, the filter can be of duration, the filter can be your custom what you can also define, and the filter can be the tags. So you can see those all different options here, right? Or the filter can be the different accounts what you have linked. So those kinds of different way you can explore and analyze your cost for a given time frame. The cost allocation tags, which I mentioned in the previous slide also, right? That why tagging is important. So most of the people or most of the organization, they not only just track the cost account wise, but they want to track the cost on a component wise. There's a difference between workload and component. Component can be, let's say, your warehouse, Redshift cluster is one component. Your entire application can be your data lake. If certain companies I see, they go very granular from more of financial operational perspective. If you want to go to that granular, or even is a best practice that you enable the cost allocation tags. So you really understand this Redshift cluster, which is running in dev environment, is charging me X dollar, running in UAT environment, charging me Y dollar, and running in production environment, charging me Z dollar. You can easily compare it with the cost allocation tags. Not only the service level, across the users also you can do that cost allocation track. Like any user by default, let's say how exactly it works is you can enable something like tag called as owner. So whenever a person launch any service, you enable things like owner or email ID as a tag to any resources, and you can enable that as a custom cost allocation tag to ensure that by default, whenever you do a billing, you can also do from a user perspective, that how each user have been doing it. Mostly people generally don't get to core, but if they want to look into that perspective, that features and functionality also provided. So on a high level, there are two kinds of tags which been provided. One is the AWS generated tags, which are the default ones. Second is the user defined tag. So as I mentioned, things like owner, things like and environments, those kinds of specific tags, you can enable it as per your requirement and the use case. And at the end, right, this tag will also help you to get the more granular cost in terms of like how this sheet has been attached, right? Sample sheet, where you're getting a total cost. Total cost is breakdown on the different tags also, cost allocation tags, like owner wise, who was responsible, which tag. I mean, tag here means environment, cost center, if you want to have some other way perspective of coding, right? And application wise, this is a very simple example, but if you want to get to that granular, you can achieve that, right? So cost allocation tags are very important to get more detailed view of your entire billing, and it help you to control the cost on the component level. And at the last that comes is the cost usage report, right? Cost usage report will help you exact on the different APIs you have, right? So as I mentioned, like my experience from previous is that, okay, my EC2 cost was more. Now, technically, which was a very simple thing for me to identify that, okay, my instance size I'm using is more. Okay. But let's say there is no change in instance size, or very simple, if I talk about, let's say S3. Now, in case of S3, if I want to identify that my cost is just increasing over and over, but I haven't, I mean, there is no larger upload what I have done, no larger download what I'm doing. I mean, no data transfer is there, upload, download. But why my cost is increasing? What exactly is happening? And I have built in, let's say, some sort of a cloud front on top of my S3. So where exactly I'm going wrong? What's going wrong, right? In that case, cost usage reports will help you on the API level. So if you see here, you're not only getting on the service level, but you're getting the usage type and the operation and the availability zone. So it's very granular that from an operational and API perspective, you can identify how much it got consumed, what is the currency, and what was the actual description. So that's a very added advantage in a very granular fashion on the API level. So not only on the service level, but on the API level also, with help of usage report, you can do it. And to enable it, again, you don't have to write custom APIs, lambdas and all. It's a very simple functionality which you can enable in your billing control, in the billing dashboard itself. Just provide the S3 bucket where you want to save that report. Automatically, AWS will keep saving that incremental report, right? Once in a day in a CSV format. Now, I've seen many people who are very particular. I mean, since they have a larger workload and they are very particular, this sheets get stored into as a CSV format in S3. They can do Athena on top of it and render in a Quicksight. So they can do some more, I would say, professional way or more visualization form also to render this same information and then apply filters and track how you're doing, right? How are you performing in a more proactive approach day by day? Because the sheet incrementally already get uploaded in same location. You can have Athena, and then Athena you have Quicksight. So they're very simple without writing a single line of codes in Python and all, you can achieve that complex use case also in a very proactive in a dashboard way. So those kinds of use case also I've seen people doing it. But if you want to keep it very small, but want to focus it, you can just enable cost and usage report. AWS will automatically upload it in the defined S3 bucket which you have given in once in a day. And then at the end of the day, you can just analyze that sheet and understand how exactly you're doing on an API level perspective. So that's about the cost report. Again, I'll recover one more important point, which is support plan, right? So all of these best practices which I've talked about, AWS also help you with help of the support plan, right? Quickly. So I think this support plan is not very, generally people do miss to enable the support plans, or they don't enable the right support plans. Again, this is more very subjective to your organization need. How exactly are you coming up? If you have very good internal resources and experts, generally people see around it. But there are different support plans which I want to cover here is right. And the difference between all support plans is about how mature is application. Let's say, for example, if you have dev environment versus production, the requirement will differ based on the account, along with the kind of maturity you have on the AWS in terms of the other details, right? By default, AWS always comes up with a basic plan. Any new account which you spin up as a part of your enterprise or as a free tier, there is a basic support plan which you already get enabled when you enable the account, right? After that, you can increase to developer, business, or enterprise. If I summarize it in one detail, the difference between each of the support plan is based on first the pricing, what you have to pay to enable the support plan. But the major thing is the kind of features, the SLAs they provide to resolve any ticket, any issues, and the kind of experts they can provide, right? So if I talk about at my end, generally I do enable the business plan, right? Business and enterprise. So business and enterprise not only help me to resolve any tickets, any production tickets any faster, right? Because each tickets which you open do have some SLAs. If you compare here, there are certain SLAs that are there, as well as the business and enterprise, they also provide some sort of an technical resources from AWS perspective, right? So if you look into this particular stuff, right? If you see the difference between business and enterprise, in enterprise, you see, you also get a technical account manager from AWS, a dedicated person from your AWS team who help you to understand how are you doing it. Is there any more perspective where you can optimize the cost or best practice? So you get one more external perspective along with your internal team. That is an advantage what you get in enterprise. Outside, the all the best practice of 24/7 email and chat functionality with their support team, or a very good SLA in terms of resolving any best practices, those kinds of stuff you can easily get around it. And developer is something what generally people do use in lower environment, but the biggest thing which I see is the limitation that you can only have one primary account. Like if you want to scale the model, you want to don't depend on one person, then developer becomes a bit of like a bottleneck, where business and enterprise helps to enable in a scale, get all the functionalities which is provided by the support plan in a easy manner. And enterprise, any person who have very large workload, very data sensitive workload, I would say, from compliances and all, please go for enterprise, because you will also get an technical account manager who will help you to understand from terms of cost, in terms of best practices, that how are you doing it, what are the things you can improve, and how you can design your workload more better, right? In terms of review and all. So that's about the support plan in detail. But from a context perspective, do remember there are 4 support plans are there: basic, developer support, business support, and enterprise support. The basic is by default enabled in all the accounts. If you want to upgrade from business, you have to pay for it, and Amazon will enable it. And again, you will be charged upfront on a monthly basis for any of the 3 support plan, which is developer, business, and enterprise. So that's what we covered quickly in today's session, which was around the cost and billing. Most of, as I quickly recap around this session, this particular section. First, starting with pricing calculator. Before you start deploying anything, even before you start working anything on AWS, estimate the cost for your workload. That will help you to understand, have you designed the solution, or the solution the services which you have picked up, are they optimal for the given use case in a given shape and form what you have leveraged. Second is a billing dashboard. If you want to get some more trends and charts and more understanding about your billing, Then AWS provides a billing dashboard, billing and cost management dashboard, which can provide very good services like budget, cost explorer, and cost and usage report to get more heads up and see how exactly narrow down to the actual consumption up to the API level, not on the service, but up to the API level, and optimize it. Then the billing alarm, we understood that okay, if you cross your set budgets, you can have different kinds of labels adjust like 25%, 50%, 75, 100% of your budget. And if you cross any of the labels, you start getting those alarms to ensure that you are fully aware that you have consumed X quota or X defined quota of your total budget. Again, sorry, I missed it. If you have any other questions, please put it on the chat. I'll be happy to answer it. The next one is around the budget. So budget is more having the previous service in a more optimized way, where you not only get the actual budget type, which is the actual ground current value, but the budgeted, the forecasted value, which, and you can differentiate between your current and budgeted value as well as the forecasted and the budgeted. That kind of more intelligent way you can get it, and you can integrate this budget service with CloudWatch alarms that can achieve you to get more the forecasted values as well as how exactly you're doing it currently as of today. Then your cost explorer, like how exactly you get the cost and all, like if you want to narrow it down on the service wise, on the tag wise, on the account wise or region wise, you can narrow down a bit more granular to get to see how exactly things are or what is your area of improvement can be. At the last, you have the cost allocation tag, which help you to enable your own user defined tags. If you want to enable the reports in your fashion, like you want to enable the reports on the owner level or on the application level or the environment level, those kinds of custom tags you can define along with the tags which already AWS do provide. And at the last on specifically for the cost and the management piece, we understood the usage report, which help you to not only get the, I mean, the previous Explorer was able to help you to get specific up to the API, up to the service level, region level. But if you want to narrow it down to very granular on the API calls itself, then usage report help you. And this you have to just enable in a very simple 2 clicks. Just go to your billing dashboard, enable this cost and usage report, provide the S3 bucket, and AWS by default once in a day will upload in a CSV format, which you can do more analytics via Athena and Quicksight on top of that S3 bucket. And then at the last, we understood quickly that what is the support plan we have, right? How exactly support plan differs. There are 4 different support plans are there: basic, developer, business, and enterprise. Basic is something which comes out of the box. Any new account which you spin up, basic is already there. Developer, business, and enterprise is something what you can enable it based on the based on your requirements. And each business plan, each of the support plans have a different SLA to solve your use case. Enterprise is always a very good option because it not only help you to resolve your tickets, open issues, but also assign a technical account manager, which help you to in terms of giving more recommendation and suggestion in terms of cost optimization best practices, or reviewing the architectures and helping you to design the right reviews, right? Operational reviews. So those what we have understood so far in terms of the cost and the billing management. So we cover the first topic, the control tower. The second is the cost and the billing the billing and the cost control. The third section for today's session is the Amazon Quicksight. So before we jump on to Amazon Quicksight, I'll just take a pause. Do you guys have any questions here? Any questions, any queries on so far, any of the sections what we have covered? Please post in the chat if you have any of the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And if not, you can continue putting your questions in the chat and I'll answer all of them at the end of the session itself. Again, That's a so trusted advisor service, correct? So you have already understood this service in the trusted advisor when it was covered in the security part of it, right? So trusted advisor service helps you in the billing perspective. Again, that gives you the recommendations. So when you talk about, I think there is a question from Dora, what is on the service that, okay, there is a trusted advisor service. The trusted advisor service is there in terms of how exactly are you doing. Let's say, for example, you have enabled EC2 instance. You have EC2 instance and the CPU utilization of EC2 instance of all the accounts, it's not going more than 50%. So those kinds of suggestions and recommendation trusted advisor can give you that, hey, just want to let you know, you have 15 instance where the CPU utilization is not above 50%, so you can downsize. Those kinds of recommendation and suggestions are given by trusted advisor also. So mostly it's not only just give you from a security perspective around also, but it can also give you those kinds of billing kind of thing also there, which I think we have already covered up in the previous sessions. But in short, the answer is yes, it also help you to reduce the cost from a billing perspective. Any other questions what we have? Moving towards the next, we'll start with the Amazon Quicksight. So Quicksight by default is a visualization service, right? I mean, there are features, functionality, what has been mentioned on the slide to give you quickly in detail, right? Amazon Quicksight is used for visualization. It's a inbuilt service, or I would say visualization as a service which Amazon provides in form of Amazon Quicksight. This is a kind of a service which is already available on your console, and you can enable this service. You can integrate this service to visualize any kinds of different charts, any kinds of requirement what you have. This works as simple like you can have, let's say, some data stored on S3 in form of, let's say, some CSV files, or let's say you have data stored in RDS or Redshift, or let's say you have some data stored in any other databases, right? You want to visualize it, understand what exactly you're doing, how you're doing, without taking any license or any kind of an overhead there. There exactly Quicksight help you a lot to address even the beginner user to an ask from a very beginner user to a ask from a very complicated use case, right? So I mean, it, every service, if we talk about, there are two perspective of users that comes up, right? One is very beginner, they have just started leveraging that service to understand how that service works, whereas there are complex kinds of advanced use cases where customer is already using that services. They know they have a very real time business problem that needs to be solved, where Amazon Quicksight is the right service for both the kinds of audience. It not only helps for the people who are just exploring like hello world kind of a thing versus an enterprise use case where they need integration with Active Directory, they need integration with security, they want to leverage this as a complete package visualization BI kind of tool. For those kinds of users also, Amazon Quicksight help you to solve your use cases. I would say the USP for Amazon Quicksight, I mean, all those pointers, 8 pointers are already written here. But if I summarize it, why Amazon Quicksight is very good services, because first, it's a pay as you go model, right? You're not purchasing any upfront license cost and all. I mean, there are costs associated in terms of numbers of user, but it is very flexible. Very flexible. Second, it's a managed service. Managed service in terms of you don't have to worry about adding more, let's say, server, scaling that server, and those kinds of stuff. Three, it can also work with security kind of stuff, right? You can have things like private link and those kinds of stuff also you can do with Quicksight. So if you have any resources, I mean, if you work completely within the VPC and you want to enable that, you can have the private link and you can enable that. So those are the couple of best practices, or I would say simplified way which Amazon provides Quicksight. That is how it's making it a go-to tool in the market, and it's really picked up the market in last, I would say, a year or so. With the new features and functionality that's coming up, it has really picked up in the market, and we'll understand all those details, all those features in upcoming slides. Let me quickly start with all of this key features which are there in this slide. One is cloud native. As I mentioned, cloud native managed offering. So there is no server actually. It's more like a software as a service kind of thing as a given. So you really focus on the visualization part of it. You don't have to go very deep to it. I need M5X large server, or I need like M5 2X large 5 servers for doing it, right? Which is what required for other BI tool. Here it is provided as a managed offering. So it can scale based on the number of users very easily. So today, let's say if you have like 2 users, tomorrow you have 100 users, it will easily scale. You don't have to worry about it. It's fully integrated with AWS. Integration not only in terms of reaching out to the data source, right? Data source, you can reach out to even your on-prem data source. If you have a JDBC connection, I mean connectivity to the database, Quicksight can even connect and build visualization on top of the data source on-prem. Here, the integrity means within VPC, as I was talking about. If you have some data source which is within the VPC and you want to just enable the traffic within the VPC, then it can also achieve that kind of a requirement, along with fine grade access and other private control. Third, secure and global. That's exactly what we have seen across almost all the AWS services, that from a compliance perspective, they are almost on the top edge to ensure that any service where they come up, they try to ensure that they have all the kinds of required certifications to address all the kinds of users, to insurance, to healthcare, or to even the startup kind of company. I mean, or coming from any domain where security is not required, they address all the different kinds of users or different kinds of industry. The fourth point is easy to develop and maintain. The best part of Quicksight is it provides APIs, as well as you can also embed. Embed is, let's say you create a chart, you create a kind of a visualization dashboard. Now you want to open the dashboard, let's say in form of a website. You create a kind of a dashboard which gives you the trends, and you want to publish the trends in your website. I mean, that also kind of you can achieve. That is also provide, that is called as embedding the dashboard, right? That kind of use case is also possible. That kind of use case is also possible with help of the Amazon Quicksight. And if you go on the right, it is fast, consistent performance, because you don't have to manage any server. So you have 10 users or you have 100 users. It's very fast and consistent. ML insights. The very best thing about Quicksight is ML capability. So in this dashboards, there are a couple of good functionalities you will see in upcoming slides, something called as Quicksight Q, ML narrations, or different kinds of ML capability, what the you can embed in the chart. That makes the chart much more intelligent, and it helps the target audience, right? So rather than like for will, I mean, I don't want to break that out, we'll understand in detail, but let's say if you want to explore something, a very specific metrics, how that metrics is doing in that entire report, you can use Quicksight Q, and with the help of that questionnaire capability, you can achieve those kinds of stuff. Insights for everyone. As I mentioned at the beginning also, Quicksight is not just meant for the enterprise users. For the beginner who just want to view, let's say, the cost usage report, which we saw in the previous slide via Athena, versus someone wants to do some very complex, let's say, complex kind of understanding. He wants to have visualization about the customers and portfolio or demographic. From any use case, it works pretty well. And at the last, as I mentioned, even on the easy to develop and maintain also, you can customize it, you can embed it in any of your application or website very easily. Many people I have also seen, they build a static website on S3 and embed Quicksight for a larger visibility of that. So those kinds of different things which you can do very easily and very seamless fashion in Quicksight. And as I talk about in the previous slide itself also, when it comes to connect to your data, it doesn't matter whether it's on-prem, in the cloud, or any application. Quicksight supports all the three kinds of stuff, right? So if you have something on-prem like Teradata or MySQL, if you have that connectivity, network connectivity sorted, if you have that access thing, Quicksight can also connect to that, like how other visualization tool can do. It can also do in AWS, as we saw in the, for sure, it's an AWS service, so it can easily blend or connect with AWS, but with proper security and a private link. So even if you want to restrict your traffic within the VPC, that also it can be achieved. And at the last, it can also connect external sources like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Twitter, Jira, those kinds of external applications also you can do. I think there is one question which I can see is, instead of cloud format, can we use AWS Control Tower? If I understand correctly, I think you're referring to cloud formation. This, I think, is the first section where we were talking about. So, ideally, as I mentioned in that particular section also, Control Tower is more like a package service. If you Once you try to deploy that Control Tower in detail in a very granular format, underneath the hood, AWS uses cloud formation itself. They have packaged cloud formation with help of step functions for orchestration, and that entire bundle they have delivered as a control tower. So control tower not only just define the cloud formations underneath, but also help you to customize different SCPs, OUs, single sign-on, those kinds of stuff. So I think there was a one question. So it's not a replacement. Don't think of it. It's exactly the cloud formation. Cloud formation is the infrastructure core. We have just packaged and built more solution with help of control tower on the core cloud formation. This was one of the question which I saw in the chat. And again, if you have any other questions, and if I was not a bit clear with your question, please do post your questions. Next, how if we continue here on the quick side, there is something called as data preparation. So any BI tool, when you talk about, by default, you always look forward how exactly you can do the data preparation, right? Data preparation, which is a very core functionality. Like you don't want to just plug the data source, right? Generally speaking, people do plug the data source where you have like 15, 20, 30 columns based on your business ask. You will not just create a visualization on all the columns. There will be some unwanted columns which you don't need from a reporting perspective, which you want to, even though you connect it as a table, but you don't want to get into Quicksight, or you want to derive some columns. Maybe let's say you have date of birth, and based on date of birth, you want to derive age column as a numeric and leverage age column in your visualization. Those kinds of data preparation activity you can do in case of stuff, right? So if you can see here the charts which are given, you can connect it, you can configure it, you can also write your custom SQL scripts on top of that, right? You can have joins and those kinds of stuff. That kinds of additional thing you can do, as well as, I mean, for sure there will be something called as spice, which is a very important thing we'll learn in upcoming slides. But just remember, you can also store the data in spice. Those kinds of different things what you can do, which is, I would say, a general requirement when it comes to data preparation. But those, I mean, the idea is not what Quicksight additionally provides. These are the exact thing what you can also do, which you're doing in the other standard offering or other standard tool with the help of Quicksight. As I was talking about the important stuff, right? The spice. The best thing which I like personally about Quicksight is the spice, right? So Quicksight provide a spice, which is more, you can think of like an internal memory. That memory help you to optimize the performance of your dashboard. So how it, I mean, technically how BI tools work, I mean, BI tool work is you connect a source, which is a live connection. You prep that data and build any dashboard. Now, every time when you refresh for pulling the new data or any kind of activity, it hits to your data source and get it. Now, there is certain latency, the kind of different things you need to do to refresh and all. The advantage of Quicksight here is the spice. It's a in-memory database or in-memory kind of space where you can load the data. So Quicksight doesn't need to go to the database again. It just reach out to Spice, and with the help of Spice, it can refresh. And again, the best thing which has come up in the Spice recently, in 2 months back, right? Just at the reinvent is the capability to refresh the Spice incrementally. There was one of the problem which was a general ask from AWS is you have given the Spice, but Spice was full refresh. Now, technically, full refresh is again expensive. If I have like terabytes and petabytes of, I mean, let's have GBs and terabytes of data, how I can do a full refresh every time? So to overcome that also, they have also given the capability to incrementally refresh the Spice. So that's a cherry on cake, and that's why Spice is a very good thing, and you should enable whenever in whichever use case you're working in Quicksight. If you see that you refresh once in a day in your actual source, Spice, you should always have an incremental refresh approach that will give you more faster performance. Because end of the day, when you talk about visualization, two things is very core. One is what kind of charts and trends you provide to the end customer, and second is how responsive is your chart. If you provide a very good dashboard, but if it takes like 5 minutes to apply a filter, no one is going to come back to that thing. But if you have like a very good chart and it's very real time, almost near real time, people will do love it, and they will come again and again and will leverage that platform very effectively. So performance response time is very important when it comes to the visualization part of it. There, Spice helps us a lot again, right? And there are a couple of things it provides, like milliseconds kinds of latency, fault tolerance, support for high concurrency, backup in S3, instance failure with zero impact, right? Technically, we don't have to worry about all this kinds of stuff. AWS, the Amazon Quicksight itself takes it internally. But just for your understanding, I just want to be sure that you do understand that technically Spice is something Amazon uses S3 behind the scene under root to take care of it. But do ensure that you have Spice enabled as per your use case. That will give you good performance improvement. Then you have different kinds of personas. Now it might be you may come that, okay, hey, I do want to have different kinds of users and permissions, right? So there exactly you can have different kinds of user types and user roles, right? So technically there are three kinds of user what you can have. One is the administrator, the second is the author, and third is the reader. The difference between three can be admin is a kind of a person who have end-to-end compatibility, right? He can manage the user, manage the spice, VPC, account setting, and all. I mean, he can do end-to-end. Author are more kind of, you can think of the designers. These are the people or group of people who will be designing your dashboard, not only prep your data, but will be designing a dashboard. And the readers are your actual audience for whom you are building this dashboard, right? Which can be any business stakeholder or any website users who are going to view this dashboard as an end user, right? So those are the three kinds of users or type of user which Quicksight support: administrator, author, and reader. The important part why I want to cover this point is the cost, which, I mean, most of the people won't apply administrator because you can do anything, right? From even deleting your Quicksight account. But the important part is you have to clearly define the responsibilities between author and reader, not only in terms of the permission, but even from a cost perspective. The cost, which is per user, reader type is less compared to author. So do enable that author charge you more as a user type. So only provide to the people who are really working on the dashboard designing. For the folks who are just only going to view the dashboard, play around with the filter and view the dashboard, always put them under the reader bucket. So that is one of the tip which you can also optimize the cost further in the Quicksight. But these are the three different types of users Quicksight provide. The next is around the data governance, right? Data governance, you can have different way on doing it. In short, AWS Amazon Quicksight provides something called as row level security, right? So row level security, you can think of in a very simple example is, let's say you have a sales dashboard. Now in sales dashboard, which you build across India, you don't want to allow people from one state to view the data of another state. So there you can have a row level security, which you can ensure that, let's say if Sanchit belongs to Maharashtra or Sanchit belongs to Karnataka, let's say, he can only view that data of that particular state with help of row level security. So it can also provide the governance along with along with the entire visualization, as well as the permission when it comes to sharing the dashboard or making the changes dynamically. Those kinds of additional configuration you can do. So not only you can governance the data or provide the data visibility to the right stakeholder, but you can also impose more restriction on top of it. So that's about the data governance. Now comes the key thing, right, which I mentioned about in the first slide itself, also about Quicksight. That Quicksight also provides ML capability. There exact comes the fourth different things: auto narration, forecasting, anomaly detection, and ML prediction. These are the four different things or ML capability which Quicksight offers on your charts, right? So if you have something, some trends or some charts where you want to forecast the value, or let's say you have a billing data, very simple, and you want to forecast it, right? Rather than using budget, you want to forecast it. You can use this. If you want to have auto narration of your dashboard, that okay, what you have presented, it should be some auto narration of that dashboard comes up. Or if you want to identify some outliners in your entire visualization, or if you want to have like a SageMaker model also with Amazon, right? Visualize the SageMaker model. Those kinds of stuff you can do here with help of the ML offering which Quicksight provides, and you don't have to really worry about doing it. So when I say auto narration, that doesn't mean that you have to write the models and all. That's an inbuilt feature which Amazon Quicksight provide. You have to enable it and provide the dashboard which Amazon Quicksight can feed and work on it. So these are the examples, right? I mean, these are the examples which, like, it can be on the anomaly detection. That's okay. For example, you have some outliners, how exactly you can identify those outliners and those kinds of stuff, right? Again, this is, as I mentioned, this is very subjective to your requirement. I just want to give you some more detailed perspective how things work from a chart thing. Again, this is not required for your solution architecture or certification perspective. No one is going to ask you to go and create one chart, but you should be knowing, since you have understand this service and studied about it, you should be knowing what are the different offerings of Quicksight and how exactly in ground it works. This is more like a forecasting kind of stuff, right? So any machine learning guy on this call this is a common problem which you try to solve always, right? That you have some data and you want to forecast that data and understand how your delta is varying, which can be in terms of your model performance or on the actual data. So you can easily integrate it, and also it provides the SageMaker integration. So you can easily integrate with help of Quicksight, that what the trend that is coming out from your model versus the actual, how much the drift is, and you can get that kind of detail here. The very interesting is the natural language narrative. Like if you want to get some natural language narration based on your charts, like the things which are in green and red, right? The natural language narration, that kind of thing also Amazon Quicksight can generate based on the different graph which you have given. It can help you to generate the narrations here. The ML insights. The ML insight is something, as I mentioned, that capability to integrate the ML machine SageMaker model. That's exactly in line what we have understood in the previous slide itself. The key feature is the embedding the Amazon Quicksight dashboard, right? So most of the requirement that comes up is, I do have some kind of requirement, some data, let's say demographic data, which user is purchasing what kind of product, what are the age group, that kind of data I want to render on my website. How I can do that with Amazon Quicksight. So Amazon Quicksight also allows you to embed your dashboard in any of your website, right? It provides you a snippet of JavaScript which you can embed it. Now that website can be your custom build website which is running, let's say, on Beanstalk or ECS, or it can be as simple as running in an S3 static website. So you can embed your dashboard on top of it, and with help of that, you can by default you can provide the visualization from your website rather than from the AWS Amazon Quicksight console. And the cost perspective also is the per session based. So you don't have to worry that it's going to more charge me from the cost and all. It's going to be per session based, which is the best thing, that how many people are using the sessions, that based on that, it's going to charge around that. And the authentications and those kinds of stuff also you can embed. I mean, those all things what we have studied, the row level security, the filters, the kind of security and those kinds of stuff, still those remain intake. It's an offering over and above, like a kind of a, you can see a kind of a dashboard which is given here. So someone already had a kind of a application, their home application built, and they want to embed the Quicksight. So anything which you see in this particular box is a Quicksight dashboard which is embedded under this application. This is I would say, most of the common ask from the customer which I've seen in the market, that okay, hey, you're building an Amazon Quicksight dashboard for me. Can you embed that in my existing application? I already do have an application, but I want to embed in that. That's a very good thing which you can do with Amazon Quicksight. Here are the couple of examples which can also, I think, as I mentioned about Salesforce and those kinds of stuff, right? So you can also do Salesforce analytics and those kinds of things with Amazon Quicksight. And that's all what we have from today's session. I'll quickly draw your attention in one of the dashboard, right? So this dashboard has been given by AWS itself to understand how exactly real-time works. So this is an actual dashboard live, right? So if I refresh this, so in one of the training session, AWS architects have presented this dashboard for our understanding how actual things works, right? So I want to talk about, once I get refreshed, so this is how you can think of, like, this is like a website where they have embedded this thing. So you can see the different charts, right? Real-time different charts, how it works. You can get around details like, okay, this is a retail, this kinds of complex charts you can create. The more interesting feature I want to draw your attention is the ask questions. So here you can see that you can ask like, okay, what kind of questions you need and other stuff. So here there is a question bar where you can see that, okay, show me all the order from this month. So rather than really going about, so as they already said, okay, there is no data for this month, right? So if I talk about a different one, that's it. So you, by default, I don't know where this information is lying in my entire dashboard. It's a very business dashboard which is completely packed by different views, reports, and all. But am more interested. I want to see this segment. By default, it just went pull out this segment rather than really going dragging around, understanding where exactly the reports are there, right? So that is a very good capability when it comes to asking the questions in a very simple language. Like I have not written any complex query. I've just said, okay, this is the case. Can you give me, like, if you type out this one, I think I've already tried this query. Let's see. This is a simple thing. Show me monthly sales. So by default, give me the filters. You can also make the change here. Let's say you can make a change, or let's say in the form of a bar graph. Again, I'm not sure whether it's the right thing, but you can also change that view and understand and create our own perspective of how you can do it, right? So that's about the Quicksight, how you can explore it, right? This is the exact dashboard the Quicksight can provide, and you can build that kind of a complex dashboard which can help any kinds of user, right from very core business to, or from a very technical perspective. You can understand in detail how things works and how you can leverage the capability of Quicksight. Again, this is not my dashboard. This is what I've got from one of the Quicksight training where Amazon architects have given that. I'll share the link in the Discord. So if you want to really understand how this works, you can play around a bit and you can get more understanding about how things you can do outside in dashboard, right? Like things like you can also have email alerts, like how exactly if you want to give the dashboard on the email, how things can work in the dashboard perspective also. So those are the different things what we understood. I'll quickly recap today's session, right? So we started from Amazon Organization. Like we had 3 sections: Control Tower. Within Control Tower, we started with AWS Organization, where we create the hierarchy and all of the stuff. We understood SCP, the way it can help you to implement the policy from one place. Why you need multiple accounts to have proper segregation, modularity, and minimize the effect of one particular application on another one. The cascading application. How we can simplify deployment of multiple accounts with help of Control Tower, why you need Control Tower. Then moving to the second section, which is on the billing and the cost management. We understood how we can have pricing calculator before even you start working on AWS, how we can understand the cost that will come up. Then around the billing dashboard and the different features or functionality that billing dashboard provides, like billing alarms, budgets, cost explorer, as well as cost allocation tags, cost usage report. You can enable this usage report to get the detailed, very detailed view to API level, and very single few clicks you can just go enable it and define your S3 bucket, and AWS itself will upload the report once in a day, and then you can have more query on top of that and you can get more understanding. And then we talk about the 4 different support plans. Basic plans always comes by default. When you spin up a new account, the remaining 3 you can upgrade as per your business requirement. Enterprise is the most preferable one because it's not only giving you the support, but it also provides a technical account manager to help you to give more suggestions, recommendation, and do an architecture reviews and all. Then we jump to the last section for today's session, which was Amazon Quicksight. We understood how Amazon Quicksight provides manage offering. You can put it within the VPC. It can help you to embed. It's meant for all the different kinds of users, right from person who just started exploring Amazon to an enterprise use case. We understood it can connect to all the different kinds of sources, which is maybe on residing on-prem, on AWS, or as well as on different applications, SaaS applications like Salesforce, Jira, Twitter, ServiceNow. Data preparation, which is a common ask when you talk about visualization, it also supports data preparation. Spice, a very good feature when it comes to Quicksight. And the best thing which Amazon released recently is the incremental capability to refresh Spice. that makes and help you to improvise the performance of your dashboard and make it more responsive to your end user. We understood there are three different personas Quicksight provides: admin, author, and reader. You should wisely understand that kind of users, because authors, there's a cost difference when it comes to author and reader per user level. So do ensure that people who are not going to design, you put them into the reader bucket, and you only put the people who are going to really work and design your dashboard as an author. Then we understand different things like the row level security, the more kind of restriction you can impose on the different kinds of personas what we had on the reader level. The ML capability which Quicksight provides, like auto narrative, forecasting, anomaly detection, and ML prediction. And the example of each of them, like this is how the anomaly detection look like. The forecasting, like if you want to identify the delta between your actual, let's say, actual trend and the actual sales, if you want to understand the difference, that what you can easily do. The natural language, if you want someone to narrate your dashboard in a natural language, that can be taken care. ML insight, it gets more capability to do ML insights around stuff. And at the more of the last, embedding the dashboard, you can also embed this custom dashboard into any of our website, and you can leverage it and power it to a larger audience pool. And the example of Salesforce Analytics. And we also saw in demo, which is provided by the AWS, like how they can complex, from complex to simple application you can build on Quicksight. So that's what we have from today's session. I would request everyone, I'll take a pause, I'll request everyone to please post your questions in the chat. If you have any, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, you can reach out to, I think there was one question, there are no that how you can reach out to me. For sure, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very actively available on LinkedIn, or as well as you can reach out to me in the chat room. So if you once registered with us, there is a Discord chat platform what we leverage. I'm actively available on both of this platform. You can reach out to me in any of them. I'll be happy to associate with you and help you to solve any of your questions. Maybe very specific to this particular session, or if you need any help on your career or any other service of Amazon, don't hesitate. Please reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you out with that. So that's all what I have from my side. I'll open for any questions. Any questions if you have, do let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. So yeah, I think there's one question. Can you share from Yogesh? Uh, can you share the practice question for solution architect certification? Okay, very good question. I would remind that we will have one session specifically on to prep how exactly the question, I mean, to give you guys look and feel how the question generally comes up and what are the different practice question in the upcoming slide itself, right? So in upcoming weeks, you will see there is one or two session organized on the same agenda. As well as please do join our Discord channel, right? We do keep posting the questions there as well as assignments to give you guys look and feel, I mean, more understanding how the actual question will come up. And we'll keep sharing those questions proactively from this week. Like this week, I'll do ensure that we keep posting like one or two questions every day, as well as we'll have a dedicated session for it. Any other questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. So yeah, I think the Discord link, for the Discord link, you have to register with us, right? The Google form link is in the chat, right? Once you register in that Google form link, by end of the day, you will get the entire study material for this week. In that, you will see a Discord link. And if you don't get it, please ping me on LinkedIn. I'll give you the link for the Discord channel. But please do register. The Google form link is in the description of this video. And for all the folks who are not actively participate and are watching later, I would do request, if you have any questions or any queries not specific to this session or any other thing where you need help, please post as a comment in the video. We do look into the comments at the end of like once or twice in a week. Will help to answer all of your questions. In case if you are able to not attend this session, we'll also help you to answer that. And the best thing would be you register with us and you ask that question directly on Discord. Like all of our volunteers are actively available on Discord channel as well. But in case if you don't want to register, you can still post the question on the comment form in the video. Any other questions do we have before we wrap up for today? So yeah, Yogesh, I think please ping me on LinkedIn. I will quickly help you post this session to get the access to the Discord. So yeah, I think there's a question from Dora. When you will share the PPT for all the completed slides, right? Completed sessions. So I think this so far we have already shared up to 9 sessions. I think we had total of 11 sessions, excluding the kickoff, the first kickoff. So totally all the 10 slides are already shared on the Discord channel, the certification channel. The only last 2 slides are left from 10th and 11th, which we will upload in this week. But all the slides are already uploaded on Discord. So if you haven't got the access to that particular channel, or if you're unable to find it, do drop me a message on Discord or on LinkedIn. I will get you the access to that channel and you will should be able to do it. But all the slides are already uploaded there. So I see there is no question. So I think thank you guys. Thank you for joining to this session. And again, feel free if you have any other questions also. This is not just for this call itself. You can reach out to us, to me or any of the organizer on the Discord channel, as well as you can put it on the LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer them. So that's all what we have from today's session. We'll be back with more good sessions next week. So please keep following us and we'll keep you posted with the time, the speaker for our next session. But there is something interesting for next week for you guys for have. So please do wait for it. We'll announce it very soon. Thank you for joining. Have a pleasant weekend ahead. Thank you.